I know that the holidays are stressful, and if you're newly sober or you're trying to get sober or this is your first sober holiday season, you may be really worrying about how you're going to get through it. So I have 6 tips for you that are not the generic tips that you hear all over the place. So I hope that you enjoy. I'm going to be playing an episode from my podcast, which is also called Sober Powered. And over there, I have episodes to support you about dysfunctional family, the science of socializing and peer pressure, and how to get through that without a drink. And I also will be releasing an episode about 10 ways that we typically sabotage our sobriety during the holiday season. If that sounds interesting to you and you haven't listened to my podcast, you can scan the QR code and you'll be taken right to it. But I hope this episode is helpful. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions about getting through the holiday season sober, and I will try to help you out as best I can. It's that time of year again, time for company happy hours, holiday parties, and seeing family. It's also a time of year when most people drink a lot more than usual. I quit drinking in early November, so I was just a little baby sober for my first holiday season. In this episode, I'll walk you through the strategies that helped me the most during my first year. Plus, I'll also share some interesting statistics about holiday drinking. According to a 2018 survey of about 2,000 Americans conducted by Morning Recovery, the average American doubles their alcohol intake in between Thanksgiving and New Year's. And before you think, wow, then what I'm doing isn't so bad, well, Americans on average drink 4 alcoholic beverages per week. Not per day, per week. And during the holidays, they consume an average of 8 a week. So they're still basically moderating. For me, I would just treat every weekday like a Saturday, which meant about 4 to 8 drinks. About 69% of Americans are more likely to overindulge in alcohol during the holidays than any other time of the year. Americans typically attend 1 social event a week, but during the holidays, they attend about 3 social events per week, spending an average of $537 on social events a month during the holiday season. This means that there are a lot more opportunities to drink or to be pressured to drink. And about 36% of survey participants said that they had rough mornings as a result of their alcohol consumption during the holidays, and that their drinking notably dampened their holiday spirit. I think that's a really important point. And the average American is late to work 3 times during the holidays and calls in sick twice as a result of drinking. I remember after I quit drinking when we would have the yearly holiday party when I was still working in biotech. The office would be pretty empty the next day, but I always felt so smug because I wasn't drinking. And according to a 2019 survey, almost 61% of respondents purchased alcohol as a gift to give to someone else. There's a lot of drinking in biotech, so it's not uncommon for my husband to get a gift of wine, and he actually doesn't even tell me when it happens. I asked him once, so that's how I know. He just leaves it in the kitchen area at work and never brings it into the house. Wine is his favorite, so I'm sure he would love to drink it, but he doesn't drink wine around me. If you have a spouse or partner that isn't sober, maybe you could discuss this kind of situation with them ahead of time so you guys have an agreement on how gifts of alcohol will be handled, especially if you don't really allow alcohol into your house. And if someone offers you a gift of wine, I just recommend not accepting it. You can either do what my husband does and put it in the work kitchen for someone else to take, or you can just say, I really appreciate the gift, but I don't drink, so I think this would be better for somebody else, but thank you for the thought. When the holiday season started, I was only a couple weeks into my sobriety. I remember being so nervous about work happy hours and family parties because I didn't know how people would treat me. I wasn't invited to my friends' Friendsgiving ever again, which hurt my feelings a lot when I saw those pictures on Instagram. And honestly, I just assumed that she wasn't having it that year. And then I saw the pictures. It's easy for us to assume, though, and this is what I did too, that people stop inviting us because they don't want to be around a sober person. Or what most sober people will tell you is it makes them feel uncomfortable about their own drinking. That's true for a small amount of people, but most people can drink or not drink, and it's not a big deal for them. Not everybody has a problem with alcohol. Most people do not. I think the reality is they think they're doing us a favor because we would be too uncomfortable being around alcohol, when really they should just ask us and let us decide what we are comfortable with. And I do want to say that I think cultivating a positive mindset and a positive attitude is very important in sobriety. And it takes time. It might take you years. But if we look at this example, where a lot of people will say, oh, they don't invite you because it makes them think about their own drinking. That's a very negative, judgmental view on other people, where instead what I'm offering you is maybe they just think they're doing us a favor so that we don't have to be uncomfortable around the party and all the drinking. That is a positive, open-minded view, which still lets you think good things about your friend or your family member, whoever these people are. And it's easy to judge, especially in the beginning of sobriety. Judge it up. I did too, and it really helped me. I judged everybody in the beginning. But eventually, we shouldn't just walk around and judge people all the time. Another thing that happened to me is every time I would go to a podcasting conference over the past few years, someone would see Sober Powered on my badge. And then in horror, they would put their hand in front of their drink and say, is this okay? Meaning they're assuming that if I see alcohol, I'm going to spontaneously relapse and just not even be able to control myself. So again, the negative outlook here would be, what a freaking jerk. How can they be so judgmental? What do they think I'm a loser? The positive, more open-minded view of this is, not everybody has encountered a sober person before, so they don't know what to do. So I have 6 strategies for you that were helpful for me in my first holiday season. The first one, make drinking a non-negotiable. You will not drink no matter what. And you probably knew I was going to say that one, but it is the most important. Some wisdom that I got from a client recently is this. If it's not a firm no, then it's a yes. If you go into a situation where you have an opportunity to drink and you haven't made drinking a non-negotiable, then you're probably going to end up drinking. You may even play the same old game afterwards, wondering why you drank again. But the truth is, you wanted to drink, so then you drank. Drinking is so alluring and normalized that we have to be firm in our no to ourselves. And pro tip, if you make drinking a non-negotiable, then you don't have to spend time or energy thinking about whether you're going to drink or not. You just don't do it. You save yourself a lot of trouble. Making drinking a non-negotiable is another way of saying prioritize your sobriety. Without sobriety, we have nothing else. We prioritize our sobriety by making the right decisions about what we go to, how we take care of ourselves, and what we do for support. If you can prioritize your sobriety and make drinking a non-negotiable, then you don't actually need any tips or strategies. You'll get it done, whether you have to suffer or not. The rest of the strategies that I have are for increasing your comfort level. But if you can't show up with a firm no in your mind, then comfort isn't going to save you every time. Strategy number 2 is have an exit plan and a reward. When I was drinking, I would always do the Irish goodbye, where I would get too drunk and then disappear and go to bed without telling anyone. except my husband, obviously. People knew that that was how I left, so I was already set up for success in sobriety. I just kept Irish goodbying when I felt like I was done with the party. And actually, when my community did a retreat in Montana last summer, they laughed at me because I would just randomly say, "Okay, good night." When you're sober, parties get boring, especially when people make the switch from buzzed to drunk and the conversation gets repetitive and sometimes pretty stupid. Eventually, standing around with other people who are also just standing around gets boring, and that's okay. Having a quality social interaction for 1 or 2 hours is much more fulfilling than a drunk, fuzzy social interaction that lasts 8 hours. I know you may feel bad that things are changing, but you're discovering what and who you actually like. So it's important for you to have an exit plan because you will probably reach a point in the night where you feel like you have to get out of there. And if you ignore this feeling, then it's just going to become more urgent. I would recommend either doing the Irish goodbye or just saying bye to the least amount of people possible, because drunk people may try to convince you to stay. I even had friends text me sometimes asking if I had left parties before because I didn't say bye to them, and I would just respond, "Yes, I did. I'll see you on Monday." If going to social things is difficult for you and you feel uncomfortable, then you should have a reward for yourself afterwards, something to look forward to while you're there. My company holiday party was at a speakeasy in my first 6 weeks sober. It was so alcohol focused, and I almost skipped it because I was uncomfortable and I didn't think I would have fun. But I knew it was important for me to get the experience because I was certain that I wasn't going to drink. I planned to Irish goodbye and then walk across the street to Starbucks and have a latte in peace. I remember when I walked out of that dark, smelly speakeasy into the quiet, peaceful, lit street, I felt so proud of myself. That latte felt like a trophy, and I was tempted to give a little acceptance speech in my head. I didn't feel like I was being punished for having a quiet coffee to myself while my colleagues partied across the street. I felt like this was the real reward: peace, feeling proud of myself, and knowing that I would wake up being happy. And I do want to add to this story too that a lot of times when I went to parties in the beginning, I would come home and I would have to sit in my car for a couple minutes and cry. And that was a few things. It was all of the stress and anxiety that I built up in my head before I went, coming back out, relief that it was over, and feeling very proud of myself. It's okay to be emotional in the beginning. You're allowing yourself to be emotional and to have emotions. Of course, you're going to be extra emotional. And that's not permanent either. So if you have trouble and you're highly emotional, just know it's not permanent. My third strategy is know how you will say no to a drink and to any pressure. If you are newly sober, it's safe to expect that someone is going to offer you a drink or ask why you aren't drinking. You should have a prepared statement ready that you are comfortable saying. I always recommend, "No thanks, I'm good." And if someone presses me, which almost never happens by the way, I continue to repeat, "No thanks, I'm good." Some of my clients have preferred to tell people that they're on a health kick because sadly, no one is going to try to talk you out of a health kick, but they will try to talk you out of not drinking. Please know that you don't have to explain it to anyone and you don't have to provide excuses. No one needs to know if you're on antibiotics. Try not to overshare or make up excuses because it's going to prevent you from gaining confidence in saying no. And even though a health kick is kind of this gray area, it kind of feels like an excuse, being sober is good for your health, so it counts. You never have to tell anybody that you're sober unless you want to. Imagine for a second if you were a vegetarian and someone was trying to pressure you into eating a burger. How would you handle that? If someone continues to pressure you, walk away, go to the bathroom, or continue to repeat no. The pressure person should feel uncomfortable, not you. Remember, not everyone on the entire planet drinks alcohol. It feels that way because we surround ourselves with drinkers to normalize what we're doing, but in reality, not as many people drink as you think. According to a 2023 national survey on drug use and health, only 51.6% of adults 18 and older have consumed alcohol in the past month. Only 23.5% have engaged in binge drinking in the past month, and only 6.3% have engaged in heavy drinking. Binge drinking is consuming 4 or more drinks for women and 5 or more for men within 2 hours. Heavy drinking is defined as consuming 5 or more drinks on any day, or 15 or more per week for men, and then 4 or more drinks on any day, or 8 or more per week for women. That's not that much alcohol. I used to say that everyone drinks like me, but actually less than 6.3% of the population does. And that 6.3% that has engaged in heavy drinking, that's at least 1 time per month, not weekly or daily heavy drinking. So it's actually even less than 6%. So try to check yourself when you have this thought that everybody drinks, because they seriously don't. Another strategy that I like a lot with a pressure person is the blank stare. Look at them and don't respond, and eventually they will answer their own question and move on. That's what I did in the beginning with pressure people, and it was really helpful. One of the realities of staying sober during the holidays is awkward comments or reactions that you may get from other people. Some may not understand your choice, while others might try to convince you that just one drink won't hurt. These interactions can feel uncomfortable or isolating, but please remember, their reaction has nothing to do with you. Try to remind yourself that your sobriety is a very powerful choice. If you're feeling pressured, you can just smile and say, "I'm good, thanks," and move on. This is your life, and pressure people do not get to decide how you live it. So don't let their discomfort and awkwardness become yours. Number 4, bring supplies. You should have a physical toolbox and an emotional toolbox when you approach tough situations. It was really helpful for me to bring headphones, books, and NA drinks. I sometimes will travel to see family during the holidays and stay at their house. So when I was sick of socializing, at the end of the night, I would have my headphones to listen to podcasts or music, or a book to read if I felt like doing that. Spend some time thinking about supplies that might be helpful for you. It could be snacks, drinks, or things to do. When you think of the holidays, certain traditions may feel incomplete without alcohol. Whether it's enjoying a glass of wine with Christmas dinner or sipping a cocktail by the fire, it can be tempting to feel like alcohol is a must. But there are so many delicious alcohol-free alternatives to help you recreate these traditions while also sticking to your commitment. I know it feels like it has to be alcohol, but alcohol is not essential. Give yourself a chance to see that. If you're wondering about how NA drinks can fit into your sobriety, then check out episode 190 where I explain the pros and cons and how they affect the brain so that you can make the right decision for you. Number 5, maybe the best tip, don't go. One of the most empowering things that I learned when I quit drinking was I don't have to go to everything. I don't have to do what everyone else wants to do. My absence is not going to ruin anyone's time. And in fact, when I stopped trying to do everything that I thought everyone wanted me to do, I realized that most people were fine with it or they just didn't even notice. When I was drinking, I couldn't even question this. I felt like I had to be everywhere, doing everything for everyone. My identity was wrapped up in saying yes to everyone that I didn't realize this meant I was saying no to myself. This is definitely something that I still struggle with sometimes. And if you're a people pleaser, it is going to be more difficult to find your no. But once you find it, you're going to feel so empowered. As I started to prioritize my sobriety, I began to understand that protecting my peace and happiness was more important than pleasing other people. Saying no doesn't make me selfish. It's a way of being nice to myself and future me. If you don't think that you can stay sober at a social thing, then you shouldn't go. You're making a small sacrifice for future you, a more grounded, stable you, who is no longer torn between what other people want and what you need. And eventually, as you build more sober time, you will feel more comfortable in these situations. But there's no rush. Stay away from things that make you feel uncomfortable or triggered. It's not weakness, it's strength to put yourself first. My sixth strategy, remember that all feelings pass if we allow ourselves to experience them. The holiday season can be emotionally charged, and we can use alcohol as a coping mechanism for stress, family drama, or loneliness. As a sober person, you may notice that these emotional triggers don't just magically disappear because you stop drinking. But by facing difficult emotions sober, you'll discover more effective ways to manage them without just turning them off for a couple hours. I know that you've probably heard the saying that a craving lasts 20 minutes, but sometimes it lasts way longer and you just feel worse and worse and worse. Still, eventually it will end if you don't drink. You will either suffer until it ends, or you will figure out something else that is helpful to deal with it. Either way, you'll build some confidence by getting through it without a drink. If you're navigating sobriety alone or you're feeling isolated during the holidays, look for sober support groups or online communities. Connecting with other people that understand what you're going through is important. Feeling supported can make a huge difference in maintaining your sobriety and feeling less alone in it. And even with the best plans in place, there might still be unexpected moments during the holidays that catch you off guard. Like a family member could get drunk, or someone might bring up an uncomfortable topic. If this happens, take a deep breath and give yourself permission to leave the situation. Triggers are temporary, and you can always take a break, go outside for fresh air, go to the bathroom, or just go into a quiet room and regroup. And my bonus tip, drinking is not going to make your family more tolerable. Whatever you're trying to drink to deal with, drinking is not going to help. I promise. My family doesn't really drink, so when we see my side of the family, alcohol is almost never present. I wasn't a big fan of this, of course, so sometimes I would drink before or after seeing my family because they triggered me so much. I remember once on Thanksgiving, I felt so frustrated and triggered that I was Googling which bars were open by my house. I stopped off at a bar on the way home and slammed a glass of wine really quickly to get that relief feeling that I craved. It didn't make anything better for me. And I've actually discovered in sobriety that I'm less triggered, less emotional, and less overwhelmed just because I don't have alcohol affecting my brain. And I noticed that even before I made much progress with doing the work. Learning how to actually deal with triggers is what's going to make your family more tolerable, not getting drunk. We have to learn how to dismiss things, not take them personally, set boundaries, and accept that people are who they are and not who we want them to be. You will probably need to create some new traditions in sobriety, and that's okay. Sobriety doesn't mean missing out. It's about finding new ways to enjoy life, make deeper connections, and live as who you want to live. So as you're thinking about the holiday season this year, try to go into it with an open mind. You know what an alcohol-fueled holiday season is like. And if that was so great, you wouldn't be listening to this. So why don't you give yourself a chance to experience a sober holiday season? And if you need support, I run meetings on the morning of Thanksgiving and Christmas. You can trash talk your family in there if you need to. And I will talk to you next week.